Go.
All right.
Okay, folks, we're winding down on the Holly Shorts Film Festival interviews. That's always a sad thing for me because I could talk about and two filmmakers day and night. I'm here with the lovely Ursula Ellis, who has done a project called Occupational Hazard. Now, that was part of the Bite Size Halloween that was on television. So, bunch of questions to ask. But first of all, Ursula, thank you so much for doing this. I want to talk a bit about your one nomination. I see you've been nominated once. I saw that off of IMDb. So nominations. I like to use my interviews as teaching tools for people in the industry. So for you personally, did the nomination help to solidify or secure further work? Because oftentimes people think, you get an Oscar, you're going to get a lot more work, that sorts of stuff. So was it symbolic of helping you get more success in your business? And then second of all, I'd venture to guess, based on all the research I've done, that you really are about the passion for the work and less about the accolades. I could be
Mhm.
wrong, but
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like film festival awards nominations are always nice. It's nice just to be acknowledged for all of the work that you've done and you've done like with your cast and crew. But I don't know, I mean, in terms of that translating into any material success, I feel like not really. I just,
oh
I
no,
mean,
that's
I
not
don't
good.
mean that in a negative way.
Sure.
It's hard to tell. Like, I feel like just being in a festival and having people reach out to you, and if you're able to attend the festival, all the networking that you do there, like that's kind of reward in itself. And a nomination is just like a nice thing on top of that. I went to grad school at Columbia, and in the time I was there, I received an Alfred P. Sloan production grant. So that was like actual money to make a film, as well as all of the Sloan Foundation support that went into that. And that was a really big thing. And I think that was um, something that did propel my career forward, as well as like give me access to a larger community of filmmakers as well as scientists, because of course the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation is
Right.
science oriented. So that was very special and unique and beneficial. But in terms of festival awards, yeah, I think it's just a nice acknowledgement on behalf of everybody who made the film together.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Plus, too, I think it is in some ways encouraging you. I think many
Yeah.
filmmakers never get a chance to hear that was great work, or we really admired this or this. So there's really no one patting you on the back. So this is
Yeah.
obviously a very formal, hey, you know what you're doing, which is terrific.
Yeah, it's
I would
encouraging for sure.
absolutely. I think it's very admirable, and I do it myself. I know that in the past you have actually been a teacher. You've taught screenwriting and set story structure, I should say. Teaching is very rewarding for a lot of us in many ways. So, talk to me a bit about teaching screenwriting. As far as for you as a teacher, when you are speaking to students, what is the one or two fundamental things that you want them to learn about screenwriting?
I think the most important thing to me, of course, there are different varieties of structure that are taught. And if you want to, you can divide screenwriting structure up into as many like component parts as you would like.
Sure.
But I think that your basic three-act structure is like very intuitive, and I think what I like to um impart upon students is that structure is intuitive. It can be, it doesn't have to be this like kind of extraneous thing that you're imposing on your story. It can be something innate that just helps your story flow and um be easy to communicate to others, so that you can kind of share in this mutual world. So that's something that's important, I think, is to teach students not to be intimidated by structure or feel like
Absolutely.
imposed upon. And then other than that, um, oh, it's so hard to choose just a couple
I
things.
know, I know, but
Um,
this way that gives them, like, at least something to center on,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Screenwriting
yeah.
is very broad.
But I also just think really developing your protagonist and making making a world that people want to see and want to be in, no matter, that can mean so many things, but just thinking about, I guess what I'm trying to say is thinking about who your film is for. Of course, it's for you. You would hope that you're enjoying the thing that you're making,
Sure.
but thinking about your audience. And I don't mean that in like a will it sell or is it commercial, more just like who is this going to matter to? Who is this going to speak to and help in their own lives and feel like a mirror to? I think.
Absolutely. You betcha. To those that might be wondering, is it possible to actually do a film and not have a screenplay? Meaning, for instance, if you take an adaptation or if you have a book in front of you and you kind of cut it apart, is that a big faux pas? Meaning, would you encourage people to not go that route? And if so, why?
I mean, there are people who make films in a more improvisational way. I think like Joe Swanberg is kind of known for doing that, and other people in the mumblecore scene, or what used to be called mumblecore. um, but yeah, where you maybe have like a loose kind of idea of like the different of the story and this kind of scenes that you want to play with, but then like the dialogue is improvised, or like things come up in the scenes through your rehearsal with actors that take things in a different direction. Like that is a very valid style of filmmaking, but I think if you want to do something like that, you have to be very intentional and kind of define how that's going to operate for you.
Sure.
I've never made a film that way. I do like improvisation a lot, and when I'm rehearsing with actors, I'll do a lot of improv, and sometimes in the films I've made as well. Um, but yeah, you have to really set the boundaries for how you're going to work in that way.
Absolutely, without a doubt. If I were to ask you, could you pinpoint what your favorite screenplay is to date that you've composed?
That I've written. Oh.
Mm,
Well, I'm working on a script right now that I can't really talk about, unfortunately.
figures. Okay.
But I'm really passionate about that script. But yeah, there's also, to be honest, the first feature that I ever finished writing it still holds like a very dear place in my heart. That movie was the first script that I did place in some screenwriting competitions and got some acknowledgement, and that was really affirming and me choosing this path. But it was also, it's about a radio astronomer and this like survivalist guy who form an unlikely partnership and relationship while she's working on this like interdimensional machine. It's
Hmm.
very, it's sci-fi, it's also kind of a romance, but it's also a comedy. It's all kinds of crazy things that I was trying to merge together when I didn't have anyone telling me not to do that.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that script's called Anomalies, but yeah, I still look at that, the experience of writing that script and living in that world as something that was really meaningful to me.
Oh, sure, definitely. And the other thing we want to talk about on that side of the fence is there are some filmmakers I know that are very adamant about taking screenplays and submitting them because film festivals accept them all the time.
Mm.
What would you say about if I asked you, how important is it, do you think, that you obtain success with your screenplay through the festival circuit?
I mean, I think it can be a great thing. It can also be very expensive to
Mm,
submit to an incredible amount of, festivals and
right.
competitions. And so I guess my advice to anyone who's looking to do that is to really curate the list of, fellowships and competitions that have been helpful to people who've placed in them. Just through your community of fellow writers, talking about these things and seeing which ones you think would be beneficial. And then also like if there's a specific community that you're a part of that has a competition that's well suited to exactly the kind of work you're making and your own identity and all of that, that can be really beneficial too. So like
Sure.
for women filmmakers, competitions and festivals for other women filmmakers, that can be really helpful.
Sure. Absolutely. I would agree with that as well. Now I want to talk a bit about your appearance. I know that your parents were in the army. Um,
Sure.
that's kind of fascinating just because that in and of itself to me is like a movie script that plays in my head. So, tell us a bit about life having parents who are individuals who we're so grateful for their contributions to our country. But then, second of all, does that become complex or complicated, and how does that spill over into your regular life as an adult now?
Sure, yeah. So my parents, my mom and dad were both in the army when I was born. My dad was in the army for 30 years. He retired in 2015. My mom was in for 12. She was active duty, and then after I was born, she went into the reserves.
Wow.
Um, so so yeah, I was born in Germany and I grew up all over the US, mostly Midwest, South, East Coast, and Southwest a little bit.
Okay.
So really, really all over in a lot of ways.
Holy
Um,
cow.
and yeah, I mean, I think there is something about that kind of semi-nomadic life that made me a better storyteller because I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of people, a lot
Sure.
of different kinds of places. You learn how to understand and get along with a lot of different kinds of people. And it's also hard for a kid to have that much change. So yeah,
Sure.
it was a little bit of a double-edged sword in that way. But yeah, I'm very close to my parents, and my mom actually is also a writer. Um, so
Nice.
uh, so yeah, so she's a writer. She writes short stories and also writes scripts. So I kind of knew that filmmaking was an option from her own journey to learn about screenwriting and get into screenwriting.
I gotcha.
Um, so yeah, I mean, as an adult, I have also moved. I was in Chicago and then I was in New York I went to college in Chicago. I stayed there a little
Right,
bit
right.
afterwards. And then I went to New York for grad school and I've been in LA for 4 years. So I do still feel that need to be mobile. And now, as opposed to when I was a little kid, everyone I've ever known is on the internet. So I feel like I've been good about
Yeah.
keeping up with people, both like in my personal life and in the film world. Like you travel for festivals and everything
Yes.
too. And so that's kind of natural to me to meet people from all over and stay in touch digitally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a unique experience. I've also, when I was at Columbia in grad school, I wrote a pilot about Army brat teenagers during the
Hmm.
Iraq War, which was
Oh,
my dad deployed when I was 12.
okay.
Uh, but yes, that's something I've explored in my work as well. And I was fortunate to receive an award from Columbia for that particular pilot that led to me taking a lot of meetings and meeting my initial managers through that award process. So
Okay.
it's both a core part of who I am and also something I've explored in my work.
Nice. Now,
Yeah.
would it be fair to say parents are parents, and I am a parent, of course. So I know sometimes it's our natural and sometimes even maybe not natural, not noticing tendency to say, don't you want to do this? Because I know I've said to my children, don't you want to be a journalist? No. Don't you want to be in the arts? No. I mean, it's just a constant no. So I'm guessing, was there ever a point where they were just a tad bit kind of disappointed because you're obviously not in the army, you're obviously not going the military route? Was
Oh, sorry, and that's I cut you off.
no, it's
My
fine.
parents, they never encouraged me to join the military.
Really?
Yeah, I think they both came from working class backgrounds. They both entered into the military for their own reasons and lived that life. And I think they kind of felt like I should have agency in what I wanted to do. I think
Sure.
what I ended up doing did surprise them because as a kid, as a teenager, I was really, really deeply into music. And I did choir, I did voice, I played guitar, I started making my own music in high
Yeah.
school, junior high, I guess, and performing in bands and on my own. And so that was something I was also really passionate about. But I ended up going to Northwestern for undergrad, and they still have a great film program. And kind of in the background, when my dad deployed to Iraq, my mom and I went to at least like one movie in the theater every week,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
as a way to, kind of deal with that because it
Sure.
was hard. And, movies can be, especially the theater experience is very cathartic and you can be around people, but
True.
also in your own kind of emotional state.
Yes.
So that was very formative for me. And I dabbled a little bit in some film stuff in high school too, but yeah, when I found myself at a school with a great film program, I was like, you know what, I still want music to be part of my life. But I'm gonna try this other thing and just see how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, and obviously it went and went well,
Yeah,
clearly. And I want to touch on that because I was just going to ask you about the singing and songwriting. Are you
sure.
the type of individual that uh, can hear it in their head? Meaning, if you're doing a film, do you hear it in your head? Because a lot of times people talk to me when they have a musical background.
Mhm.
Sometimes they can hear parts of it in their head first, and then they put it to paper. So, are you normally going to paper first, or are you listening for the melodies in your head first?
Oh, I mean, I guess in terms of dialogue, I come up or I like hear certain lines or certain things, and keep a record of just like interesting bits of conversation
Sure.
to use for later for whatever project might be appropriate. In terms of like the score of a film, I've worked with a few different composers and thankfully, they humor me being collaborative and, working together on things. And I've
Sure.
been part of music making for some of the films that I've made as well, including Occupational Hazard. There are like weird ethereal voice moments in the film. That's me.
Yeah.
That is me. Weird breathing. That's also sometimes me. Uh, but um, but yeah, in terms of like hearing the film in kind of a more abstract way, I would say it's yeah, more like I do get these kinds of audio visual impressions of like a mood or a feeling or
Sure.
just what I envision. But yeah, I think it I growing up, I was never good at like drawing or like painting or like
Okay.
a lot of filmmakers have that kind of background.
Sure.
Um, but I feel like I am a very visual person, but I'm not in that like traditional sense. And so with film, I can see a world and then collaborate with other people, and bringing that to life. And that's very special to me.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I think a lot of times people kind of downplay the musical score. I'm of the belief that sometimes you can make an entire film with just music. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have
Sure.
to, you could literally have actors that are not saying and thinking, etc. So, if a filmmaker happens to watch this, what recommendation would you give them in terms of prioritizing how music fits within their project and moreover, how to make it work for their story?
I mean, in terms of occupational hazard, it's an incredibly music driven and
Oh,
sound
yes.
driven project. And there is a quote, a famous quote that I don't remember who said that, sound is 51% of your movie. And I do
I
think that's
agree.
true. Great sound and score can make or break a film. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that would be my advice is just don't undervalue the aural component of your work. And there are a lot of films that I love that don't have any score at all or only have diegetic score, but they have incredible soundscapes that fit the world instead. And so I think it's just thinking about the kind of movie you want to make and how you want to make your audience feel and how score and sound can be a part of that experience.
You betcha. Now, I want to ask about your education a bit because I saw your background at Northwestern as well as your background at Columbia, and those are not tiny schools. Those are more prestigious, etc. And so I think that there really is somewhat of an intimidating factor surrounding these
Mhm.
particular establishments.
Yeah.
So maybe if you would talk a bit about that in terms of how can people listening to this have some confidence as a student that they have something to contribute to such a prominent institution, because it's not everybody that goes to these locations.
Yeah, I mean, I they were intimidating for me, I'll tell you that. I mean,
Really?
I don't come from, yeah, my parents were in the military, they didn't go to, they both went through RTC programs at Marshall University in West Virginia, which is funny because now I have a good friend who runs the film department there, and I talk to her class all the time. And so I'm kind of affiliated with the school they went to too,
Sure.
which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I guess when I was applying first to college and then to film grad school, I didn't know enough at that stage to be intimidated. I was just like, this is funny to admit, but I was a big fan of the Gilmore Girls
Oh
as
my
a
God.
kid. And I was like, if Rory can go to Yale, like,
Oh my
I
goodness.
wasn't
Look at that.
thinking like, she had incredibly wealthy grandparents. I kind of didn't think about that part. I was
Sure.
just like, like, well, she did it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I just felt like I'd moved so much as a kid, and college would be an opportunity to live in a place like I got to choose for a change,
Right.
hopefully, possibly. So I just applied to schools that had programs that were interesting to me in music and film and the arts in general. Um, and I actually, my high school guidance counselor did not think I was going to get in anywhere I applied. She was like, "Are you sure you don't want to apply to more Alabama schools?" I went to high school in Alabama.
Sure.
And at the time, I was like, no, I got to get out of here. Looking back, I had a great high school experience, but in the moment, I wanted to, be somewhere else.
Right.
But yeah, so, I did not know to be intimidated until I got there. And then I realized like, oh, a lot of the people here have such a different background from me,
Right.
they come from by and large more wealth. Definitely not everybody, but a lot of
Mhm.
people, especially in the film program, in the film world, they might have had like celebrity parents or, some kind of pedigree or connection to the industry.
Right.
That, yeah, was intimidating. But I don't know. I guess I felt like my background and the things I'd experienced made me unique and gave me a different kind of voice and set me apart. And so instead, I definitely did feel out of place often, but I feel like I created a community of all the other people who also felt out of place. And
I hear
together
you.
we, made a lot of work. And then my impetus for going to grad school was that I still had um so I was able to use my dad's GI Bill to go to undergrad.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah,
Okay.
and I still had a year left because the post 9/11 GI Bill came available like my sophomore year of college. That's the first time I was able to
Right.
use it. So I still had one more year left. And film grad school was not something I planned on pursuing in undergrad, but I knew I had this free money.
Mm.
Not free because it came from my dad,
Right. Sure.
like a year career. But free for me in the moment.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I took a chance again. And similarly, I had a college professor who was a great mentor, but who I think was worried about me being disappointed. And he was like, like, don't expect to necessarily get into these like prestigious film grad schools on your first try. And I was,
Right.
all right, great. Well, the application fees are a lot, so I hope at least I get into one.
Right.
But I ended up getting into, not to brag, but I got into all the programs I applied to, and that was really great. So my choices were AFI, NYU, or Columbia. And I felt like Columbia, they spent the most time just like reaching out to me personally and having like an actual real conversation about me
Okay.
and my work and what I wanted to do. And so that's why I ended up going in that direction. But it was a similar experience, if not more so than Northwestern, that, a lot of it's a program that's over half international, which is awesome.
That is.
Exposed to a lot of different worldviews and people
Sure.
writing their home countries, and that broadened my perspective a lot. But there was also an incredible amount of even more so than undergrad. And but again, I feel like what it did for me that was beneficial it made me think about my experiences and how they are different and how they are, you know, relatable to a lot of audiences and a lot of different kinds of people in the world. And I think as filmmakers, part of your job, unless you just want to make work in a vacuum, or, you know, that's
Right.
for you and your immediate surroundings, you've got to think about how you relate to the world, and just what kind of films aren't being made or aren't being made enough, that could fill a void that's out there in terms of reaching certain audiences. And my time at Columbia really really put that into perspective for me.
Well, I imagine.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Occupational Hazard, because that's
Yeah.
the project that I was blessed to be able to watch through HollyShorts. I want to start off with a generic question because you're a bit younger than I am. So sometimes perception is different. So tell me what your definition of a good horror looks like at your age.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like good horror, my favorite horror films, I feel really connected to the protagonist and what they're going through.
Okay.
Sorry, they're going through, and I feel very afraid for them. And I'm afraid for what they have to lose, or what is out to get them, or, you know, what's happening in their world. And I feel solidly along for the ride with them. So
Okay.
I guess I think of movies like Rosemary's Baby, like
Oh yeah.
horrible things are happening to her and you're very
Yes.
afraid for her. Or in Get Out, you know, you're very afraid.
Yes.
I also really love Let the Right One In is one of my favorite horror films.
Never seen that.
Oh, it's there was an American remake. The original is Swedish, I think.
Okay.
It's not, I'm sorry, I can't remember now, but it's like
That's
in,
okay.
some Northern European country. But yeah, it's similarly about this kid who like gets bullied all the time, and he makes this friend who just happens to be a vampire. And
Wow.
so you know, but it's complicated, the relationship between them.
Sure.
Yeah, so you know, and It Follows is another favorite horror film of mine, where
Sure.
you know, you're worried for this group of kids. Yeah, so those are my favorite horror films, and they run the gamut in terms of like sub-genre.
Right.
I think all kinds of horror can be done well, but
Absolutely, I agree. Does that mean that you're excited or that you're almost kind of relieved because, Halloween's coming to an end after like the 75th film?
I
I say
know,
that
I'm really
sarcastically,
curious. Yeah, coming to an end. Yeah.
right? Because they keep this is it now for sure. Like he's not
Yeah,
coming back this time. And
that's what they're saying.
miraculously, I feel like I was buying it up until like spoiler alert, they cut his head off. I'm like,
Yeah.
so how exactly did this happen? And I guess you could say that it was somebody else, but I'm just like, I love James, the guy that plays the current Michael Myers in the last 3 or
Yeah.
4. I really like him as an actor, but
Yeah.
I think I love Jamie Lee too. But I mean, she
Oh,
was on
yeah.
Instagram with this neat little message about the movie, and all I
Mhm.
was thinking is it really over though?
I know. Yeah. Well, I'll believe it when I really
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. You betcha.
I'm so curious how they're gonna close out this chapter, at least.
Oh yeah. And they talk very much about just tying up loose ends, and
Yeah.
there are some loose ends here, even through all these years, even
Oh,
despite some of
yeah.
the people gone. So yeah, I'll be interested to see that. So yeah, kudos to those guys. I think it's October 17th is coming out. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
The first movie in this trilogy, I really enjoyed. The second
yes.
one felt a little like they were kind of buying time a little bit. So I'm curious what this third movie is gonna
Oh,
be.
sure. You
I think
betcha.
it'll be a lot more
I
exciting.
think I do too. And moreover, I like the fact that the last one incorporated brought a bunch of the people back from the early
Yeah.
on one. The nostalgia aspect is
Yeah, I
always really a
appreciate
good
that
thing.
too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But at a certain point, it's like, I mean, you can only watch them slay people so many
Yeah.
times, so many ways. And then you're just like, let's get creative, folks. You know what I mean? It's like the
Yep,
kill's the
yep,
kill, and that's that. Okay. But this isn't about Halloween. This is about you, Ursula. So Occupational hazard, I know, was completed in October of 2021. So,
Yeah.
at that point in time, I'm curious what made you want to head to the festival circuit? Why not try to do a self distribution and get it out there on its own, like a standalone? Or was that
Yeah,
not possible?
so right. So the film was produced by 20th Digital Studio as part
Right,
of Bite Size Halloween for Hulu. So it was released with, I think there were maybe 17, 18 other shorts. They were
right.
released the series on Hulu last October.
Yeah.
Um, and really, so the film festival component, unlike all the other shorts I've ever made, came after. So the studio decided that they wanted us to also submit to some festivals, and gave us some
Okay.
funds to be able to do that,
Nice.
which was great. And kind of like icing on the cake, it was so exciting to have a project on Hulu and be able to share it with people who don't attend film festivals or can't, or like that was
Yes.
really cool. Never had a short on a streaming platform like that before. On the
Cool.
internet, yes, but not
Sure.
on like a platform.
Now, Hulu, obviously everybody's familiar with that, etc. And so when somebody comes to you and says, "All right, we're going to try looking at doing this project," the very first thing I noticed was it's ironic that almost every Halloween shit editor, I was doing really good till that point. So just scrap that whole thing because it's now I don't know what now you have Halloween in my brain. Okay, so scrap that. Let's try it again. Okay, so when you start looking at doing a horror movie, one of the
Yeah.
first components I've noticed in lots, which you did yourself as well, is it's got to be in this remote location in the middle of nowhere. Now, my personal belief, and I'm not a horror person, my kid is. I guess I should ask him, but I'm like, what if it wasn't? What if it was in the middle of Manhattan? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's this necessity to keep the genre
Hmm.
cliche. Does that make sense? And I'm not beefing on your film, by the
Yeah,
way. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, there just seems to be this need for it to be like there has to be a dumb blonde waiting to get killed. It has to be in the middle of nowhere. It has to be like full of blood. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, so yes, even though Ursula filmed in a remote location, how did you try to keep it less cliche? Because I always love a
Yeah.
movie that's more refreshing.
No, that's a great question. So, for me, my family is from and lives in rural West Virginia. My mom moved back
Okay.
home actually a couple years ago. So the house we shot in is my mom's house.
Nice.
And what's in yeah, that trope of the rural setting, I think also is usually hand in hand with this idea that like rural people are scary, and that like there's something scary about them and about nature.
Yes.
And for me, that's where my family's from. I don't share in that belief. And so I think what I tried to explore with occupational hazard, which of course is a very short and just a real snippet of time, but it's more a fear of kind of the unknown underground. In my family, numerous people have worked in the coal industry and have this kind of background. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I thought I turned editor, just we'll retry this because I thought for sure that I turned off my stupid phone and now it's ringing and now I'm afraid it's going to hear it. So I'm trying to pay attention to while the stupid phone's ringing. Gosh, that makes me mad. Okay,
That's
now
all.
it's officially off. I thought for I always check it too usually to make sure it's off. I'm so sorry. Okay, so editor, let's start with the part of let's let's have you Ursula restart with the part where
Yeah.
you're at after you talk about your mom's house being in Virginia, then go right after that.
Yeah. So the trope of, rural areas being scary, I think is usually hand in hand with the notion that rural people are scary and that there's something, kind of um, wrong or backwards about people in rural areas. And for me, that's where my family is from. My family's from West Virginia, and most of my family still lives there. And I think it's like a very beautiful place
Yeah,
full of,
sure.
incredible nature and incredible people who've endured a lot of hardship. It's not it's a very like working class region, and there is a history of exploitation in terms of like the coal industry, extracting resources, and those resources generate a lot of wealth, but not for the people who live in these communities and work in coal. And so that's something I'm interested in exploring, or is like the health ramifications and the environmental ramifications, and also just like the kind of social, intergenerational ramifications of coal and what that's done to the region. And so occupational hazard is a very small part of that exploration, but the fear comes in being exposed to something unknown underground, and that taking over, your entire life above ground, your real life, as opposed to your like work life. Working in coal is incredibly dangerous. It used to be a lot more dangerous in many ways, but people still get black lung. There's still accidents. There's a lot of bad things that that come from the industry, and also like in terms of the land, of course, like that's a given. But yeah, so that's why I chose a rural setting. However, I think that you're right. Cities can be scary too. For my family, they're horrified. Every greeting card from my grandma ends with "be careful." And every time I talk to her on the phone, she's like, "Are you okay there in Los Angeles?"
Right. Yeah, we get that. But no, I've seen tons of movies where the backdrop and the premise is like a city somewhere, and it's a major city, but you have no idea. That's almost in some ways you would never suspect that element, which means in some ways that's appealing because you don't see it coming as far as that stuff goes. But didn't she just do a lovely job? She just described her whole movie for us right there. So basically, in case you missed it, that really is what occupational hazard's about. I'll just talk about the tech side of it there because I don't like to give away too much, because I feel like people are more excited to see it when they know less. You know what I mean? As far as that stuff goes. One thing I wanted to ask you was it intentional? I don't know that you did this, but the premise of this to some degree, meaning what happens to your lead actress, reminded me of Creepshow. Do you remember where Stephen King had
Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if that was inspired or if you thought about his process or what actually happened to his guy in there. And if you've seen Creepshow, you already know to some extent, but no, that's not exactly what happens here.
Right.
But was that inspirational, or did that affect how you did the film at all? Were you trying to interject that in on purpose to some degree?
Yeah, so I was aware of Creepshow. I became aware of Creepshow while making the project. I hadn't seen it. I knew of the movie, but I hadn't seen it. But my practical effects designer got really into it, and so together we went down the rabbit hole. But this was in like pre-production.
Okay.
So yeah, it was definitely a big reference for us. And I mean, there is a little bit of more of like a dumb hillbilly trope in Creepshow, but in a more good-natured way than in a lot of those kinds of movies.
Oh, you betcha.
He's kind of just a goober, not like a cannibal or anything. So
I agree with you there. Your film, and there are technical things to be thought about when you do something that's that's more scary, that's more the horror genre. For instance, like you had dark clouds, you had rain, you had the thunder background, etc. So somebody watching this, talk about how you construct something like that, because for instance, if you're outside and it's not raining, well, you better be able to create rain, you know what I mean? Just like the cloud effect, etc. So how do you bring that to life on something that's not a Hollywood budget? Because I'm guessing that you're not rich, so
yeah.
you know.
I mean, so our VFX artist, Zach, was like the first person I contacted when I found out I was going to be making this project with 20th Digital. And he and I started, developing ideas pretty much like right out the gate. And as well as my practical effects guy, Ben. So the three of us, as well as our DP, Travis, we were all working together to visualize this world and brainstorm, how we were going to do both practical and digital effects from the moment I knew this project would be happening. So I think very careful early pre-production planning as much as you can have. And this film was made on a pretty tight schedule. I found out I was going to be making it maybe like end of June, I want to say. We
Okay.
shot in like middle of August, and we had to deliver the film to the studio the third week of September. So it was very fast for me. I like to take a lot of time. Fast for me. So yeah, you know, planning was really instrumental. But I also think just having a group of collaborators where you can share a vision. I mean, I put together a lot of things to try to get us all on the same page, and then they brought their own ideas to it. But yeah, just staying collaborative and communicative throughout the process is very important. The
Okay.
rain, we actually did have rain. Unfortunately, it didn't last as long as we needed it to, but in the
Okay.
wide shot of the house, that is real rain.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, on the effects side of things, again,
Mhm.
without giving away too much, our young lady in the lead seat here, so she's exposed to something, which leads to some special effects that most might appreciate during the course of the film. So, again, we want to talk technique. It is not as simple as one thinks. I mean, I honestly believe things like blood are much easier to put together because we
Yeah.
all know you can have an actual recipe and then have someone bleeding in it, and it looks very effective,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
In your case, you're not using that; you're using a different
mhm.
substance, etc. So, twofold question: did you have an actual recipe and put something like that together? And then on the flip side of the fence, how does the actor react to that? Because I've seen actors do this, and all I'm thinking is this really has to be uncomfortable and gross and just unhygienic. And I'm like, that's all I'm thinking. I'm like, this is really gross, you know?
Yeah, well, in terms of our practical effects, Ben Gozier, who did all of that work, he's somebody I've known since college. We actually spent a summer working for one of our professors, working in exchange for like Chipotle burritos. To doing practical effects testing for one of his films. So
Okay.
this is something Ben has been working in since that faded summer. And he just has an incredible amount of experience, and you know, has done a lot kind of in this ballpark. I feel like he's normally doing like black goo. Black goo is very popular.
Okay.
But you know, we've got some stuff that's adjacent to that, I'll say. But yeah, he did a lot of testing beforehand.
Just hang on 1 second. I kid you not. Kerwin, there's a squirrel in my living room right now.
Oh
Literally
no.
just ran across here. Kerwin, come
Wow.
down here right now. Like, I'm literally looking at this across. Okay, seriously, come down here. Look over in the corner. There is a squirrel in the living room, and we need to get rid of it like right now. You don't have any idea. Like, look over in the corner. It literally just dashed across the room just now. I'm like, it's right next to me over here by the door. I I'm so sorry. We were going so well. This is like
This
a
is
horror movie, isn't it?
so
Okay,
fun.
what
Yeah.
do we do? Okay, can you go next door? Can you go get Art and tell him right now? I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. It's just
No, it
like
ran
in
now. See what's
my
going on.
Christmas vacation or National Lampoon Christmas Vacation when the squirrel comes in and is in the tree.
I'm like freaking out, like seriously, how did a squirrel get in my house right now? Like, I'm not kidding. There's like
We'll find a way. We've got some aggressive
we've never
squirrels.
had that. Like, I had a squirrel, like a tiny squirrel, get into my car, and like it was in my car for like a week, and we couldn't get it
Incredible.
out. And I'm just like, it's just so I'm like, and my significant other used to live with us, and so he got. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, son. Oh my God, that was so weird. I've never had that happen. So like, yeah, so my better half, is 52, and so he
Mhm.
passed from cancer last year.
I'm so
So
sorry to hear that.
normally I'd be calling Michael like, "Oh my God," but like seriously,
Yeah,
what are the chances of a damn squirrel running through your house right in the middle of an
that's wild.
interview? Oh
That's
my
so
God.
wild.
See, no more horror people. It's probably you. Like,
Yeah,
oh
it's
my
my
God, I
kind of
gotta
luck,
stop
honestly.
interviewing everybody. Okay, so let's try this again now that my squirrel
Yeah.
is gone, because that just freaked me out. I was like, out of the corner of my eye. Okay, all right, let's focus. All right, so let's backtrack. So we were at remind me again what you were talking about. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I was just talking about our practical effects designer, Ben, and all the experimenting.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Um,
so I remember the black goo, then you talked about something after that. So let's start right
yeah, yeah.
after the black goo discussion. So continuing on.
But yeah, so for occupational hazard, Ben just experimented with different colors, different textures, before we actually got to production. So we had a good idea of how it would work. And then in terms of it functioning on the day on set, that was all Ben as well, with different kinds of rigging. And yeah, and there is a latex appliance that he built also.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
he did it all. He was a one-man band. And then in terms of Virginia Newcomb, our lead,
Yeah.
and how she worked with all of that, this was the first film she'd done with a prosthetic and with this like degree um of practical effects work. She's worked in, she's a very experienced actress. She's an incredible,
Yes.
incredible actor.
Oh,
You can see
yes.
her in The Death of Dick Long, the A24 film,
Yep.
and she's also in the Beta Test, the most recent Jim Cummings film. So Virginia, she's a pro, but I actually think all of the discomfort and the grossness of the practical effects is actually really beneficial because it gives you something tangible and physical that you're working with as opposed to VFX. And some actors are incredible at working with things that are not there. That's a whole skill set
Right.
like in
Oh,
and
I
of
know.
itself. But when you
Yes.
do have something to physically interact with, I think it's better. I think what's almost harder is there's a lot of time in occupational hazard where she's alone without a scene partner. And so,
Yes.
in a way, the practical effects became her scene partner as opposed to a person.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about what that would be like in pre-production, but I still think on the day, seeing all the stuff, you cannot ever fully be prepared for some of the things that we had Virginia go through. But yeah, she is a consummate professional, and I think she did a fantastic job of playing with the goo.
Absolutely. And the neat thing is folks, just so obviously you gave a wonderful description of your film. So we have two lead actors in the film. And obviously, of course, Virginia comes from a background of working in the coal industry. And then you see that, you feel like the audience feels like something is off, but you're not 100% sure where she is, how this happened, etc. So in my interpretation, one of the things I thought about was, you know, uh, there's a lot to be said about an individual in most occupations when you just feel like you're not in the right place in this situation and you know that something needs to be different. And then sometimes you almost wait too long to really, if you wait too long to try to figure out where you're going or what's happening,
Yeah,
the end result isn't so terrific. I mean, I realize that this is more of a scary production, but that's kind of my takeaway
sure.
from that is that,
Yeah,
literally, she thought about it and thought about it and is like, well, playing it off and thinking, oh, I'll deal with this later, etc. And then, obviously you have a finality, which we can't give away,
yeah.
obviously. So terrific casting, terrific theme. I love the undertones, all of that creepy sort of undertones. Like people love in society today, like Jigsaw and The Purge and things like that. But I'm all about like the old school scare. You know what I mean? I don't need you to have me
Yeah,
traumatized because
yeah.
I live in the world. Okay, the world's kind of traumatizing,
I
so it's like okay.
know. I
So
think
this
about that a lot too.
absolutely, this is a great short, and it's not, that's the other thing is it's timed out nicely. It doesn't go on too long. It's put in a nice, pretty little package. You did well. You've been selected 3 times. I know that, of course, and
Yeah.
of course, you just did HollyShorts. And so, where are we headed next with occupational hazard?
Well, funny enough, this weekend we're screening in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where Virginia is from,
Ah,
at the Sidewalk Film Festival, which is
nice.
an awesome film festival. I actually taught a screenwriting class on Zoom in 2020 through them, which was really fun. One of the highlights of my 2020, I'll tell you that.
Sure. Oh, sure.
But yeah, so they have, a lot of programs like that as well as the festival. And I'm so honored that they selected us, and Virginia, of course, is going to be there since it's
That's
her
awesome.
hometown screening. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you ever talk to her and she decides that she wants to talk to a lowly journalist, please send her my way. I think
Oh,
she's incredible. I mean, I do. I like the body of her work and I like her presentation as an actor. And just on her social media, you can just see she's very professional. She's poignant on screen. So I think that's important.
yeah, and it was important to me to work with someone, who's from the South and who has,
Sure.
kind of can understand this world in a personal way. And Ben Long, who plays Robbie, he
Yeah.
actually is a local actor. This was his first film
Nice.
ever. And he just started his first year of college at West Virginia Wesleyan. So he's doing theater and joined a frat and is having the whole college
It's
experience.
awesome. That is totally cool.
Yeah. So this was his summer before college, was working on this movie.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, folks, in case I didn't mention it, her name again is Ursula Ellis. I'm going to read off some places where people can find you. I found you on IMDb. You have a website, ursulaellis.com. She's on Vimeo. She's on Instagram, and that handle is URSYKAY. Any
Yeah.
other places where people can find you?
Oh, I think that's it. I do not have a Facebook or a Twitter or a
Yes,
TikTok.
I
So
saw that. And that's okay. That's wonderful.
yeah, I can only handle one at a time
You
personally.
betcha. You bet. Awesome. All right, Ursula, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to
This
talk
was
about this. This was
such a
lovely.
pleasure. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Let me
Bye.
stop the recording here.
Yeah.
Oh